My name is Matteo, and I was born here in Patagonia, like these stags. I'm a hunter. I hunt stags. I kill them to live. No, I don't want to change any balance of nature. I don't want to destroy the environment. I just want a stag. This one. You feel sorry? Why? A stag is dead, that's all. We have a saying here. Something is always dying, and something is always being born. Look, the day is being born.
The wind blows through my hair, sad songs when you're not there. Night is cold, the time moves slow, and yet my song still grows, my love.
A balloon is freed in the air, a message of peace entrusted to the wind. It's sunset on a spring day at Cape Cod in the United States. Young people have come from every part of the world for this rally in defense of nature and wildlife.
Love keeps growing stronger, stronger every day. The world today is hard,
In the setting sun, naked and wrapped in plastic or paper, the young people of Cape Cod are the last expression of a neo-romantic return to nature. But nature is violent. It not only accepts violence, it also imposes violence to survive. But these young men and women no longer want to kill, they want to protect. They want to love without dominating.
Whatever road I find, through dusty hills of time, good or bad, I won't be sad to sing the dream we had, my love.
Yes, nature imposes violence, and those who prefer to exist without dominating other creatures, without killing, are forced to live within the protective shade of the forest. An orangutan, for instance, shy and vegetarian, if it ventures out into the open, into the light, the leopard's aim is sure. There is no escape for the monkey. The leopard is still a cub, and he likes playing. But this is a game of death, and the outcome is inevitable. The textbooks say that, among other things, the anaconda feeds on small monkeys. But the printed page is one thing, reality is another. We are at Rio Muni in Amazonia. This monkey is a platyrin, and it is hardly small. But then the anaconda is huge, almost 20 feet long. What we are seeing happens every day to hundreds of monkeys, but this one doesn't want to be one of them. Its hands cling desperately to the earth, to a blade of grass, to life. Beneath their low brows, the Australian Aborigines have the same look in their eyes as Mateo, the stag hunter of Patagonia. It is the look of all hunters, the look of the man who is about to mete out death. The same throughout the world, in the eyes of all who kill, for survival, for sport, for any reason. To strike down a kangaroo by hurling a spear is an extraordinary feat, but to bring down a flying fox with a boomerang seems next to impossible. This giant bat has a wingspan of about 3 feet. Its ears contain a supersonic device that enables it to avoid in less than 100th part of a second an object rushing straight at it. And yet even a target with such an incredible speed of reaction is not invulnerable. The Aborigines of Cape Melville in Queensland use a boomerang, a weapon whose trajectory is unpredictable. Hunting in this way is very economical. There are no bullets to be wasted. And the white meat of the bat has a delicate flavor, even sweeter than rabbit. The Grant gazelle and the Australian buffalo are much faster than man. But these animals can't escape their pursuers when they get within the range of a spear. Man's great advantage over animals is that he is social. He hunts in groups. Here, the hunters take turns chasing the animal until its resistance weakens when it is driven in terror towards the final ambush. Man inspires fear in animals, and often shock kills them before the spear does. This can happen to the kudu of the Ethiopian plains, to the eland with its sword-like horns, even to the colossal elephants of the Congo. But does man know he inspires fear? Perhaps not, because oddly enough, while he kills animals, at the same time he dreams of being loved by them, as in the ancient myth of Eden. Human beings are not satisfied just doing things. They want their actions to have a meaning. It's not enough for them to suck the warm blood from the veins of a dying antelope. They want it to be a religious rite. Otherwise, how can they consider themselves different from the other animals who do things merely by instinct? Here, for example, religion is used to justify the hunt. The gestures that accompany the cooking of the prey are religious. The hunter facing his victim is religious. These Australian Aborigines believe that the souls of dead human beings are reincarnated in animals, and to avert the spirit's anger at dying a second death, they cover the bodies with handfuls of dust, symbolizing reburial. The hunt is sacred. It means something more than the act itself. In this capacity for symbolism lies man's illusion of superiority. Animals hunt merely to satisfy their hunger. These are the remains of a man, his flesh torn away and eaten by other men. The date is January the 25th, 1975. It is the rainy season in Burundi. 3 corpses, 2 still fresh, 1 rotten, have been discovered at Gamo, the pathetic remains of a cannibal rite. A hatchet was used to split open their skulls and to hack the flesh from their bodies. Its blade was forged in blood. These were men of the Niami tribe. They died of natural causes and then were eaten.
Ask them what tribe they're from.
The district officer is questioning the two men under arrest. They are brothers, Kano and Naru Kabila. The dead men were their relatives. One was their father. Why did they do it? Because it's what tradition demands. To inherit the hunting skills of the dead, their relatives must eat them. Here in Burundi, ritual cannibalism is so widespread that the government this year was forced to increase the punishment from imprisonment to the death sentence. The ground is sown with human remains, bearing witness to rites held at various times. Kano and Naru will be hanged, and they will never understand why. After all, they obeyed the law of tradition. Unfortunately, they didn't know of the new law, which punishes those who obey the old law. Every year, at the beginning of the great hunting season, the Kuru warriors celebrate a rite of fertility and renewal, rooted in mythology. In the wind that blows continuously over these lava hills, the hunters, who must be married and over 26 years old, pierce the earth with their spears. Each digs a hole among the woolly saxifrage plants, driving below the moss and the bryozoa to reach the rocks beneath, which for them is the womb of the earth. The Kurus believe they are fertilizing the earth by injecting their sperm into it. Once it is pregnant, the earth will bear animals to be hunted. Game for the Kurus is called Mayama. She is the daughter of earth and man, and logically must be conceived before being killed. The impregnating of Mother Earth by her lovers is accompanied by intense mental concentration. At the moment of orgasm, these men must think of the animal that will be hunted. We should never forget that hunting is sacred among the peoples who live by it. It would be strange if it weren't, knowing man's tendency to make everything that concerns him sacred. Rambouillet, France. Every year, a hunt takes place here which seems to date back to the Gauls, the first inhabitants of the country. For that matter, the ceremony resembles a pagan ritual more than a sporting event. The Gauls, we know, sacrificed a stag to their druid gods so that they would help the hunters during the year. But the Gauls had an excuse. Their lives depended on it.
Et nous remercions Saint-Hubert, notre patron.
It is also said of the Gauls that before the hunt, they gathered in the druid temple to win the favor of the gods.
Pour les chiens, les chevaux et toutes les autres créatures qui dépendent de lui. Nous invoquons sa bénédiction.
Though everyone is against the stag, dogs, horses, aristocratic ladies and gentlemen, even his own patron saint, the animal has a chance of saving himself, for by tradition he can only be killed in daylight. If he manages to hold out till dusk, he's safe. So there's a kind of contest between hunters and stag and the dying rays of the sun.
call that fair play, do they?
These unusual characters, mingling with other spectators at a traditional fox hunt, are members of the Wild Fox Association. They are, you might say, Scarlet Pimpernels of the woods. Somewhat ingenuously, they're fighting to give foxes a brighter future. They have agreed to show us today, April the 22nd, 1975, an example of their methods. The first operation might be called chemical physiological. At the moment of the traditional stirrup cup, they help the waiters carry round the drinks. From what they tell us, these drinks are laced with a laxative that would embarrass a medium-sized horse. Led by Professor Ladislaw Volkic, professor of Polish at the Rainbow School in London, these fox lovers are spread out along the route which they know in advance. The next step is to exploit the dogs through their vulnerable sense of smell and their equally vulnerable hormones. Such a combination is irresistible, and it is to be found in seductive Savanna, an Afghan bitch conveniently on heat at the moment. Instead of following the trail of the fox, the hounds will pursue the more appealing odor of the female. At the beginning of the fox hunt, the hunters move off with the pack, awaiting the sound of the horn, which will announce that the fox has been sighted. While the riders canter past the admiring eyes of the local inhabitants, the pack leader races ahead seeking the prey.
Take your panties off. There you are. Be a brave little girl.
The fox, meanwhile, is true to form. In other words, he runs away. But he needn't have bothered, really. The hounds will ignore him and chase after Samantha.
Hurry up, Samantha. Run for it.
Here, give me a hand.
The chemical physiological method was last used in October 1971 when a local duke was purged. On that occasion, the duke and several noblewomen, having left a good part of themselves on the terrain, brought a legal action against the Wild Fox Association. This gentleman seems to have lost the others. Perhaps he's a teetotaler. Most of the hunters end up in the middle of a highway. The unfortunate day ends with an accident involving a horse and a car, but luckily without victims. The Wild Fox Association has struck again.
las llanuras del Banguelo estaba llena.
Ahora ya. ¿Cielo?
¿Te acuerdas cuando con 2 escopetas Manuel y yo cobramos 616 piezas?
Otros tiempos, Juan. Ahora ya todo se acabó.
They speak in low voices in the semi-darkness, as if in church. And as in a church, here on the floor and the walls are the embalmed relics of the hunting cult. This is a hunters' club in Peru. The fox lovers are right to wage their battle. In the past 20 years, hundreds of species of animals have become extinct. But it's a mistake to blame it all on the hunters. Overpopulation and industrialization are greatly responsible for the zoological apocalypse. True hunters talk more and more of conservation and less of killing. They mourn the past. They commemorate their adored victims, their dear departed enemies, lost forever.
Sita pulchella,
Extinct.
nectarina magna,
Extinct.
Sertia muraria,
Extinct.
vulto gryphus,
Present.
Here he is, the condor. But even he is doomed. True, he's a member of the vulture family, but his species is disappearing. And animals are like antiques. The rarer they are, the greater their value. Here in the Argentine, professional condor hunters catch the birds alive to sell them to a zoo, and thus they are saved from extinction.
That's how it is, senor. If we catch him, we give him to the guards in some zoo. There he lives the good life, the life of a king. Look, you see? You see? That's sheep's flesh. And it's so salty that the pobrecito gets thirstier and thirstier. And the more he eats, the more he drinks. Oh, how he drinks. Until he's so swollen, so full of meat and water, that in the end he... But you'll see now, senor. You'll see.
Armadillo, diminutive of the Spanish word armado, meaning armored, an edentate mammal of the family Dasypodidae.
Don't run away! We hate to see you! You're in danger! Don't let us run away! You're going to let him get away! Quick, get in front of him! Why are you running away, stupid? We'll take you to a nice zoo! A nice park! Can't you hear us? Wait! Wait! We'll give you a new home! Get him! Get him! Don't let him get away! Get him!
With childlike intensity, humans are sorry, but it's a little late. They try to save the very animals that till yesterday they savagely persecuted. With the same fervor they showed in their former slaughter, they now sponsor scientific crusades to help the inhabitants of the savanna and the forest. They are trying to alter a course that perhaps cannot be reversed. They're trying to make very rare animals increase and multiply, like the Alaskan bear, the white rhinoceros of East Africa, the elephant of the Upper Volta. A pathetic and desperate undertaking. Saving the sea elephant, the Mirunga leonina, is equally pathetic. Other animals, too, are captured and transported to game reserves, like the now almost non-existent Argentinian stag. The last census reports only 18 males and 32 females. Some are lassoed and then branded so that they can be kept under constant observation. Others are shot with morphine bullets. Once they are drugged into sleep, it is easy to transport them. The use of a harmless sedative instead of a deadly bullet seems to indicate that even today man is incapable of having a relationship with animals built on mutual trust. But perhaps there never has been such a relationship.
Yes, turn to the front. That's it.
Some of these animals, rescued by force, are also transistorized. Tiny transmitters are inserted under their skin so that the men of the reserve can keep them under supervision. In addition, they are often marked with phosphorescent tags for identification.
Look how cute. Delightful.
Oh, dear.
Quick, take it, take it.
So everything is fine. The earthly paradise is just like it was before. Better, in fact, because the coddled, well-fed animals now seem to have lost the violent instincts they had in that other Eden, created by the sanguinary God of the Old Testament. Man in his anxious search for a world without dangers and surprises is deceived for a moment and thinks he has achieved his aim. This sequence is part of the evidence examined by the court in a lawsuit brought by the heirs of the victim against an insurance company. Because of his tragic thoughtlessness, Pitt Donitz was torn to pieces at 9:25 a.m. before the eyes of his wife Carol, his 9-year-old daughter Kim, and his 2-year-old son Graham. The incident lasted just over 2 minutes. Due to the nature of the terrain, it was impossible to make any use of the cars. The animals were driven off only after the arrival of a game warden. A lioness seized the victim's movie camera. Stained with blood, the camera was recovered after the animal was shot. It contained the last scene filmed by Pitt Donitz. This one. What made Pitt Donitz leave his car? Was he showing off? Foolishly underestimating the danger? Perhaps he wanted above all to prove to himself that he was not afraid, even though he was armed with only a camera instead of a gun. For Hemingway, hunting was the supreme test of virile courage. But like all poets, Hemingway spoke of the past. These boys, too, riding full tilt towards an unknown future, like Hemingway and like all poets, are looking back into the past. From the Camargue region in France to the Isle of Wight in the English Channel, a community of young people. What do these girls and boys have to do with hunting? Over and above the theory and practice of non-violence, their choice of this way of life seems to indicate an imminent turning point in the modern world, not merely social, but anthropological. The ancient way of dealing with nature and establishing a balance with the surrounding world has come to an end. Today we face new problems, often unpleasant. Customs change, but ancestral memory remains. The contrast between what we were and what we are causes anxiety, neurosis, and the consequent need to escape from reality. The first human societies were small hunting communities, and they established laws for living together, both for the individual and the group as a whole. Keeping the camps clean, fencing in the settlement, separation of the sexes, sexual abstinence at certain ages and in certain periods, rules of behavior for the young, privacy in the manner and the place of performing the sexual act and other intimate bodily activities. All these things date back to the earliest hunting communities. If this is true, and it apparently is, then that explains how with the end of hunting, many related customs also ended. Yes, the days when men went hunting to survive are over. But to feed these young enemies of hunting here on the Isle of Wight, every day 900 head of cattle are killed, 2,100 pigs, 6,000 sheep, 38,000 chickens. Every second throughout the world, millions of animals are slaughtered. The difference is that no one today sees the death of the animal which nourishes him. The unconscious hunter, the man of the big cities, doesn't even give his victim a chance to flee, to die in the sunlight. He raises animals to kill them. This is a basic contradiction, and should make us reflect on the unchanging nature of humanity.
My love keeps growing stronger, stronger every day. The wind blows through my hair, sad songs when you're not there.
Penguins. Only penguins. At Matouan in the southern hemisphere. Nothing but penguins. Not only on the island, but also in the water. These birds used to live by catching fish, but since the water is polluted and for some years the sea's currents have no longer brought supplies of plankton, there are no more fish in the sea here. So man is forced to provide these creatures with the food they need. Once upon a time they lived to fish and fish to live. Now they are left to go through the empty motions of their former way of life. They waddle down to the sea like wind-up toys. Naturalists have explained their peculiar gait as a vestigial need to pick up speed before taking off. Penguins are birds, after all, that no longer know how to fly. The penguins of Matouan don't even know how to live. The Eskimos in Point Barrow, Alaska, don't seem to know what to do with their existence either. Until yesterday, they were a hunting people. Then the discovery of oil swept away the fragile structures of their society based on hunting and fishing, and they deteriorated into a chronic state of melancholy. They are dying of neurosis and alcoholism. How can they be saved? Simple, get them out hunting again. At least this is the opinion of certain American psychiatrists. Are they depressed? Let them fire a few rounds before supper. Are they suffering from boredom? Half a dozen cartridges after each meal. Hunting would be therapeutic. Killing animals would restore their mental equilibrium. Unfortunately, the results of this treatment, as of so many medicines, do not seem to justify the enthusiasm of those who prescribe it. Docile and patient, the Eskimos raise their eyes to the gray sky and await the coming of the wild ducks. The eider with their silken down arrive, and the men shoot and kill. But their depression lives on. 1,600,000 cartridges per hour. A hunting rifle every 4 seconds. As far as possible, man has remained a hunter, and as such he wants a weapon, his gun, capable of multiplying his aggressiveness by millions. A 300 has an impact of 2 tons, a 400 5 tons, a 500 7 tons.
Come on and buy a rifle, man. Its body is firm, cool, smooth. Come on and buy a rifle, man, and you'll become a man.
Every year, an estimated 6,000 elephants are killed in Africa, 1,400,000 zebras, 1,600,000 buffaloes, 6,500,000 antelopes, and so on. The Dark Continent is becoming a boneyard. But the Lobi, known as the skeleton men because of their ritual painting, believe they have found a remedy for the dwindling supply of animals on which they live. At the change of the seasons, these hunters enter the waters of the Black Volta and celebrate the Banguela, the ceremony of life. After the dance has aroused them, each warrior encloses his penis in a magic case, symbolizing the animal species to which he means to grant the essence of new life. At the end of the ceremony, the semen obtained through the ritual masturbation is cast into the river. The animals along the trails of the Upper Volta will drink its waters and multiply. But if one day the migrating animals fail to return in spite of the ceremony, we can be sure it will be abandoned. The magic world is a practical world, like the world of technology. This might be a surrealist picture, a Magritte painting. In reality, these spheres sailing over the Peruvian savanna are electronic probes released from the sky. They are used to measure the wind, which once a year favors fishing in this part of the Pacific Ocean. The horsemen of the Pampas, the shepherds of this flock of golden balloons, are working to recover them. The electronic readings are taken here, where the balloons were born, in the world's most remote laboratory, which is dedicated to the study of the famous wind known as El Niño. This wind comes down from the mountains around December and hurls itself upon the ocean, driving the warm currents from the coasts. It summons the deeper, colder currents, rich in plankton, to the surface. With plankton, the fish arrive, billions of tons, to supply the fish industries of the whole world. This is the miracle of El Niño, sometimes called the wind of Jesus because it comes at Christmas time. The probes can tell if the Niño will blow, but where is a mystery that only the cormorants can reveal. Hence the second part of the operation.
De acuerdo. Atención, Eolo llama a vuelo 2. ¿Me oye, vuelo 2? Cambio, cambio, vuelo 2, cambio.
Recibo, Eolo. Estoy volando sobre los bancos. Nada que señalar. Pájaros tranquilos. Repito, tranquilos. Todo está bien.
Aquí Cormorán Negro. El sujeto ha sido apresado. Los vemos, vuelo 2. Están sobre nosotros y los recibimos fuerte y claro. Confirmamos y procedemos a la operación. No hay ningún cormorán volando, solo algunos ibis en dirección norte-noreste.
These cormorants carry a tiny transmitter under their left wing. As soon as a bird starts fishing, it will tell the laboratory the precise point where the shoals of fish are surfacing. The information will then be relayed to the fishing fleets, which are ready and waiting.
Esperamos con firme recepción. A usted, Eolo. A usted, Eolo. Cambio.
Aviso de movimiento en los bancos. Los cormoranes están emprendiendo el vuelo.
If El Nino failed to blow, it would mean disaster. The Peruvian fishing industry and the manufacturers of zootechnical animal feed all over the world would be threatened with bankruptcy. It happened in 1965. American livestock breeders had to reduce production by 30%. Of 20 million birds, 16 million died of hunger, and the grain harvests dropped 80%. Even today, we still live off hunting and fishing. As the waters of Peru teem every year with anchovies, the rivers of Alaska witness the remarkable phenomenon of the salmon. We know that the fish are spawned upstream in rivers, but nobody knows exactly where they go or why. The mysteries of nature, however, don't bother the Kodiak bears. They know by instinct that the salmon are going to come. That's all they need to know. The fact is, the salmon can mate and breed only at their birthplace, and so they fight against the current, leaping up rapids and waterfalls, defying the bear's ambush. It's nature, relentless, often incomprehensible, that demands such difficult lovemaking. The salmon, obedient to the end, will die immediately after mating. Quite a spectacle. The bears seem to be having fun. Disregarding the cruelty of the scene, we smile, because certain films have conditioned us to looking at nature in a particular way, and these scenes are typical of the classical animal documentary shot according to the manual. The rules could be summed up as follows: accentuate the romantic aspects of nature, humanize animals, making them harmless and lovable, set them in a consumer society paradise, banishing bloodshed, of course.
But what about the poor fish?
The child has spoken up and unmasked hypocrisy, like her famous counterpart in the Hans Christian Andersen story. Fish also have a right to live, but the trouble is nothing is written in the manual about fish. This is another effect of conditioning by films, racial discrimination among animal species. Certain animals, fish for example, can be tortured and killed, others can't. There are some animals who serve man against their fellow animals, dogs, for example. Certain birds of prey have been the hunter's ally since time immemorial. The use of falcons for hunting dates back to the Middle Ages. Today, the heirs of the feudal lords who trained them meet with their falcons at a little town in northern Europe, where it seems that this violent sport originated.
Ex ho ego te absolvo avis.
the bird can plummet from the sky at 125 miles per hour. There are stories of falcons that through an error in flight have literally smashed a pulp against the ground. But though the falcon uses man as his perch, he is not the leading character in the adventure. Man, as always, is the hunter. The falcon is merely a weapon like a missile or a boomerang. What if the falcon makes a mistake? What if this patrician bird is defeated by a common descendant of the chicken family? It's a fault of the times. The lowly animals are victorious over the mighty. For the ancient monarchs, it becomes harder and harder to retain crown and scepter. The king of the Savanna, a queen in this case, is the most powerful animal of prey in the world. Almost 900 pounds of alert muscle, jaws of iron, claws of steel. Woe to the animal who allows his attention to wander, like one of these gnus caught off guard while grazing. Like dogs and falcons, the cheetah is another of those animals that collaborate with man in hunting. The cheetah is very swift. In the savannah, it can even outrun a car. In fact, it can accelerate from 0 to 60 in 2 seconds 16. And even the Combi, one of the vehicles specially fitted for filming in this kind of terrain, has a hard time keeping up with him. So today we shall have two groups hunting. The three cheetahs with their speed and us with our cameras. Our prey, a unique film sequence, the sight of the world's fastest animal in action. To encourage the cheetahs to display their maximum velocity, we've arranged for them to challenge the second fastest animal in Africa, the ostrich. Swift, light, implacable, the dogs follow the trail of the giant wild boar of Patagonia. There is no escape now for the animal. The hunter, guided by the barking dogs, is about to win the contest. Man and dog, an inseparable pair as old as hunting itself. The boar has defended himself and has disemboweled one of the dogs. According to hunting philosophy, the dog must not blame his master for the wound. He blames the boar. In spite of his ferocity, the wild boar is still classed as game. But the puma of the Andes is a deadly enemy. Dogs hate him. This overgrown cat attacks flocks and even dares attack their master. In his anger, the dogo, the Peruvian greyhound, forgets he wasn't made to climb trees. In less than 10 minutes, this puma killed 6 sheep and mauled their shepherd. The campesinos of the Andes believed the puma must not be killed by a rifle shot. His spirit would move into a new body and he would come back to take vengeance. So the chosen weapon is the knife, its blade bathed in the blood of one of the great cat's victims. And death has to come with one blow, a stab in the heart. All these metaphysical precautions to kill a puma. One of the dogs has been killed. Another has been disemboweled by the puma's claws. Maybe he'll live, maybe not. His master treats him as best he can, as he would another hunter. There is a pact of mutual aid between man and dog, but the dog gives more than he receives. In cities, the pact between man and dog is dissolved unilaterally by man. But the dog doesn't know that. He thinks the hunt is still going on. It is. But in this case, the dog has become the prey. The Guaranaki Indios in Amazonia deliberately silence their dogs when they go out to hunt the aglas, the white-faced monkey. They say that the dog is so loyal to man that he might mistake the aglas for his master and warn him of the imminent danger. There's the victim. The weapon is a poisoned dart, tipped with curare. A few drops are enough to paralyze the motor impulses. A nasty death. But why feel pity for a monkey? What is an aglas, the Guanaki say, except an animal with fur and a tail, with a chance resemblance to man? And what is an Indio, say the man-hunters, except a monkey without fur or tail? Because the Indios themselves are hunted. About 7,500 are killed every year. These are the statistics of a genocide which Father Alfonso Ximenez has denounced to the United Nations. The curare darts kill planters, technicians, even missionaries. So the natives must be flushed out and slaughtered like harmful animals. This too is hunting, or at least an extension of hunting methods into the field of human relationships. This extension is normally called war. Watch carefully. This native has only a few seconds to live. One of the men tries to prevent the execution being filmed. This comes as a surprise to us. There, it's done. We were surprised, as we were saying, because the executioner had made an agreement with the photographer to have himself filmed at the moment of the killing. These men who hunt the Indios are organized in pseudo-military groups. Normally they are hide hunters or gem prospectors, the chronically unemployed who, when the opportunity arises, sign up as mercenaries. This time they've been hired by a contracting firm which wants to build an airport in the jungle. The firm's workmen have discovered some Indios while the bulldozers were at work. After surrounding them, they tried to flush them out, setting fire to the bush with naphtha. 18 days ago, one of the workmen was killed by a poisoned arrow. This is the immediate justification for the slaughter. Now you can see how man kills his fellow man. To kill one's fellow man is very human. To torture him, beat him, disfigure him, outrage him is only human. To laugh and to rejoice in his suffering, all very human. In this case, on top of everything else, there is also profit involved. For every scalp, for every head, an agreed price will be paid. Scalping, decapitation are therefore part of the job that is being done, even if done with considerable sadistic pleasure. Thus we see the distinction between hunting and war. Man, apparently, can't kill his fellow man without some feeling. Sorrow or joy, it doesn't make much difference.
If we see the harmony, that is the breeze that stirs the trees. Oh, how it sings for you and me, for you and me. For the sun keeps shining on us. We need a sunny day. Mother Earth, please don't forget our names. We'll be searching for the road to love again. If we try, I know we'll find dreams come true, the wounds will bind. Let's take the chance, there still is time for you and me, for you and me.
The orangutan is one of the animals still left to us, not yet relegated to heaven, not exactly on the earth. He lives in the limbo of the forest's boughs. This timid vegetarian lives from day to day, concerned only with eating and with not being eaten. And all would be well with him, more or less, if there were no zoos eager to display this so-called exemplar of a species that is becoming extinct. That's why from time to time in Malaysia there are expeditions to catch him. Naturally, the capture of an orangutan is also a matter of ritual, called in fact Utang Leka. This ritual consists of cutting down the trees around the one that shelters the animal. It's like an allegory of birth. The orangutan is extracted from the forest like an infant from its mother's womb. But once extracted, he has a cage waiting for him. Metaphysical poets spoke of the prison of this world, but their bodies were free, even if they thought of their souls as chained. For this wild creature, used to the freedom of the jungle, the bars of his cage are material and real for the rest of his life. From the days of Aesop, animals have been used to point morals. We shall resist this temptation, simply saying that we like the little orangutan very much and would have preferred for him to stay in his forest.
Look, look! His face is old. It's funny. We used to look like that. No, we didn't. Yes, we did in the past. How do you know? 'Cause I know.
Perhaps there has never been any peaceful coexistence between man and animals. The fact remains that man feels the need to live with animals, domestic or not. Why? Because the animal is company. It seems very little. On the contrary, it is everything. His name is Eric Seaman. He belongs to that small number of naturalists, ecologists, or ordinary men who are trying to save what can be saved. Seaman has chosen wolves as the outcasts he will protect. He learned their way of expressing themselves. He moved into their territory and was authorized by the Bavarian government to live with them, to enjoy their company. Perhaps the philosophy of St. Francis with regard to animals is a bit optimistic for today. Now man needs animals more than animals need man.
If we see the harmony, that is the breeze that stirs the trees. What joy it brings, oh how it sings. Joy it brings, oh how it sings, for you and me, for you and me. For the sun keeps shining on us, we need a sunny day. For the road to love again. If we try, I know we'll find dreams come true, the wounds will bind. Let's take the chance, there still is time for you and me.
The wind blows